Hi friends and family, welcome to UPlug. I'm Mac. I'm sure by now you know that here at UPlug we try to understand relationships as God's design for humanity. Romantic relationships specifically. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but our natural inclinations do not necessarily translate to God's intent for humanity. I'd like to propose that as we look at Easter, this informs how God restores our relationship with Him and our relationship with each other. So God gives us another shot at rectifying our relationship with Him and rectifying our relationship with each other, which was broken in the garden. Because I'm sure you'll know that this was short-lived, that God's blueprint for humanity was short-lived. He had created humanity to be in perfect relationship with Him and perfect relationship with each other. We see God visiting humanity in the cool of the day, and we see Adam first laying his eyes on Eve, calling her bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, and we see Eve receiving that love. This is the perfect ideal that we see in the book of Genesis. But as that was short-lived because of humanity disobeying God, we see the opposite happening. Instead of Adam and Eve embracing each other, we see the separation that was caused by the fall. Chapter 3 of Genesis verses 7 reads as follows: At that moment, the moment at which they fell, their eyes were opened and they suddenly felt shame at their nakedness. So they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. Now we see that there was an attempt to go back to the original design. We see that there was an attempt to go back to the original way that things were as God had designed them. And this attempt was Adam and Eve trying to cover up their nakedness so that they do not feel shame with each other. But we see that this was not enough, because verse 21 of the same chapter 3 says, And the Lord made clothing from animal skin for Adam and his wife. As if the leaves that they've sewed together was not enough, God made a way so that they could be covered. Now this suggests to us that an animal must have been sacrificed in order for an animal skin to be made available for their covering. Now God is basically saying to us that our attempts are not enough. I know that usually when we look at the Passover weekend, we focus on our relationship between us and God, but there's another relationship that needs to be restored, which is between us and ourselves. So God is showing us here that our attempts are not enough. Broken relationships, mojolo, can go wrong. And we try to go on dates maybe to fix it. We try to give allowance, girlfriend allowance, in order to fix it. But we see that right from the beginning, our attempt to mend this broken relationship would not suffice. But God made provision by killing an animal and taking that skin and covering Adam and Eve. So this is what we want to look at this Easter. That Friday shows us the sacrifice that God had made so that we may be covered. That it is through God's covering, not our own attempts, not our own means. Those will never suffice. That God's covering and God's sacrifice would be the one that would suffice to cover us and mend our relationship with Him and mend our relationship with each other. And it's my prayer that as we reflect on Easter, that we'll remember that God has come so that He can restore us to Himself and to each other. I pray that you have a wonderful and blessed Easter. God bless.